Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is coming to your door. You better get ready for it. I'm not kidding. All right. So last night I was watching Tucker's show on Fox News before I went on Sean Hannity's show, and I heard something really disturbing, ladies and gentlemen, and it kind of goes back to the point I've been trying to drill into you for weeks now. That sadly and unfortunately, this fight is coming to your door. What do I mean? This fight? I mean it in both macro and micro ways. The macro fight is, I mean, the fight for the future of the country. We have a tyrannical group of leftists who believe in cancel culture, attacking free speech, calling everybody they don't agree with racist, locking up their opponents, discriminating against people. That's the left. Antifa, street violence. Then you have the right. Respect for human life, respect for God-given big R rights, respect for voter integrity, respect for things like patient-directed healthcare, school choice, economic growth and prosperity. This is a real fight. This wasn't always the fight. We once had Democrats like JFK and even Bill Clinton who said, the era of big government's over. Those Democrats are gone. We're now in a legitimate binary choice. Do you want the country to survive or not? That fight is coming to your door. You won't be able to avoid it. The left will never, ever, ever leave you alone. But on the micro fight too, little things, like I told you one of the stories about my daughter's schools, where things are going on in these schools and stuff, these little micro fights about little things like, oh, we need masks. So I was like, well, what are you basing that? I don't understand. Like you ask my 8-year-old to wear a mask doesn't even fit her right. Does that make any sense? I'm just asking you to evaluate the kind of pros and cons. Like those fights are coming to your door too. Ladies and gentlemen, your opponents are very, very dangerous people. And by dangerous, I mean dangerous to you. Listen to Tucker Carlson last night on Fox about what the New York Slimes, the dreadful conspiracy theory blog, what they're doing to him to try to intimidate him and his family to get him off the air. Listen to every single second of this.
The last thing this country needs is more narcissism. It's not very interesting anyway. People who use the word I a lot tend to bore everyone but themselves. But tonight we're going to make an exception to that rule. We don't have much choice. Last week, the New York Times began working on a story about where my family and I live. As a matter of journalism, there is no conceivable justification for a story like that. The paper is not alleging we've done anything wrong, and we haven't. We pay our taxes. We like our neighbors. We've never had a dispute with anyone. So why is the New York Times doing a story on the location of my family's house? Well, you know why. To hurt us. To injure my wife and kids so that I will shut up and stop disagreeing with them. They believe in force. We've learned that. 2 years ago, a left-wing journalist publicized our home address in Washington. A group of screaming Antifa lunatics showed up while I was at work. They vandalized our home. They threatened my wife. She called 911 while hiding in a closet. A few weeks later, they showed up again at our house. For the next year, they sent letters to our home threatening to kill us. We tried to ignore it. It felt cowardly to sell our home and leave. We'd raised our kids there in the neighborhood, and we loved it. But in the end, that's what we did. We have 4 children. It just wasn't worth it. But the New York Times followed us.
You believe this? You have an American alleged newspaper. It's not. It's a Pravda-like leaflet that functions only as an activist arm for the far-left radical anti-American leftists. You have a far-left leaflet, formerly known as the New York Times, running a doxing story on Tucker Carlson. Why would you do what? Joe, is this a serious question? Paula, feel free to chime in too if you have an answer I'm missing. Because if I'm missing it, I really want to know. It's not a joke. Think about it. Act like a leftist for a minute, Joe, and try to find a reason. It's important.
We'll try.
What legitimate news purpose, journalism purpose, does publishing, if not his direct address, Tucker, but enough information about where he lives, what legitimate news purpose would that be? I'm serious. Act as a leftist, man. I'm open to it. And my audience, what can you think of any?
I can't. I mean, the only legitimate purpose would be to cause him harm that I could think of, as thinking as a leftist, is to hurt him and his family.
You'd be correct. Now, if you were writing a story about Tucker Carlson's history of successful real estate transactions, I'm legitimately trying to think of a reason. I'm not messing with you. Then that would probably be relevant, right? Tucker bought in the exclusive Malibu community 30 years ago and on this street, and either he's good or bad at real estate, and because he's so good he made all this money, or he's so bad he lost all this. I mean, that would be relevant, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Thank you. What would a story about Tucker Carlson show, his politics and his positioning on the show? What does his home address have anything to do with? Paula, can you think of any? Please, I'm just opening up the floor here. No, but Paula's not interested today. She's like done with me today. Now she's giving me the wave off too. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. Deal with that. We're kidding, folks. There is no purpose. The purpose is exactly how Joe just described it. The purpose is to intimidate Tucker, to make sure that the people who chased him because he has children out of his other house, which I don't blame him one bit, his kids matter. The only purpose is to make sure those same people show up at his new location to intimidate him into silence, which he will not do. Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is coming to your door. You better get ready for it. I'm not kidding.